And here we are at the top of the hexagram, the 41st gate that has started off this rave new year. We are now in gate in line 6. It's all going very well. And this is called Contagion. We are looking at this 41st hexagram as a key to understanding our evolutionary process. This has been coming through in all the lines we've looked at. This time frame that we have in which we are in these kinds of vehicles functioning in the way that we do. We are at the stage at the moment of the 5th line, but we're not yet in the 6th line. We will first deal with the mutation that is going to bring about the awakening of what we call the emotional consciousness or spirit consciousness. But there's something else that has to take place. One of the more mysterious things that the voice told Ra about our evolutionary process is that when the change comes, when we lose these vehicles and go on to our next process, that this stream that starts in the 41 and goes all the way up to the throat in the 35, it will disappear. It will not exist anymore. And this reality is built into this line of contagion. The 41-6, from its perspective, it goes through its 3rd line stage, through being driven by its own need for its own feelings and being caught up in the need of the feelings of others. And it recognizes the price that you pay for desire because it's all about desire. So when you look at a 41-6, you can look at a being after the early part of its life that seems almost desireless, aloof from the desire field, but still able to confirm out of its very nature the possibility of an experience. If you ask a 41-6 if it's possible to do something that is only possible through mutation, it will tell you you can't do it. Remember that it's collective, and in being collective, it's limited as a possibility for human experience. And it will always say, no, you can't fly. Nobody can do that. In the lifetime learning, the law that the maximisation of potential not only ends decrease, but inevitably such transcendence benefits others. It not only ends decrease, but it ends feeling. It ends fantasy. Ra used to describe the nature of emotional or spiritual consciousness like this. He said, we have emotional waves that are being generated, and between those waves, as they interact with each other, there is a field between these waves, an interactive field, a field where the consciousness actually will exist. We do not understand such a thing. It is not possible anyway to understand it in the logical sense of the word. This is something where our experience of consciousness will be outside of our individual bodies and will not be our own consciousness, but it will be a consciousness that we are sharing with somebody else or a group of people, or ultimately a planetary field, something that is a slow developing process. When we get to the 6th hexagram, we get to the roof of the house, to the end of the process. And we know that we find the potential of wisdom in every 6th line. And therefore, it is less likely to function in the nature of what the hexagram is than any of the other lines. The 6th line is always saying, what for? Why should I? I want to see the whole thing. And you cannot see the whole experiential field. It's not possible. The lifetime learning tells us this very clearly. This process of constantly going from one thing to the next will come to an end, but invariably or inevitably, such transcendence, and it is transcendence that we're talking about here, it benefits others. At the moment that we are no longer looking for a new experience, then we are all in one thing together. As long as there is not the drive within humanity that it has to be something more. The 41-6 can really see what experience deserves to be stimulated, what feeling will not turn out to be damaging. All of that is sitting there in the 41-6. and they're very contagious. This whole business about the sixth line being able to say to the villagers, this is the right solution for you. That fifth line's got it right. And everybody in the village going along with that because it's contagious, by the way. It doesn't mean that they're right, of course. That's always an important thing to keep in mind. The dilemma of all six lines is that unlike the fourth line and the fifth line, whose transpersonal gifts are limited to knowing that there is a harmonic gate at the other end of the channel, in the sixth line, it's the whole circuitry that is being viewed. And what that means is that the only experience worth being obsessed over is an experience that ultimately is of benefit to humanity and will be significant enough to be stored as historical material. And that's quite a thing. And it's a very long view because there are so many steps between the 41 and the ultimate revelation that's possible in the 33. And it's a long way from the 41 if the 29 has not made the right commitment. And the 46 accepts that it's in exactly the right place at the right time, and so on. Because all of the elements of the circuit must work in order for that experience to ultimately reach its destination and be correctly stored as an experience that will benefit the whole. The abstract mind is able to take in that experience existentially and bring it back conceptualized as an idea about what it means to have that feeling and that experience, and to express its value to others through a stimulating story. But it's not like the 41-6 is a genius and can figure it all out. It's not aware. It's from the root. It has an element of adrenaline in it. It's a motor, it's a pressure. So there is a resistance in the 41-6, like all six lines, standing above the fray, looking at all of it and saying, yeah, sure, okay, crank up your feelings. Where is it going to take us, though? What's the point? That's what the sixth line wants to know. We have to go through crisis before we get to progress and change. So it has to really be worth the effort. You're finally getting to the end of it. And once it's all over, you're just going to be hungry for another experience. So why bother? There's a lot of pointlessness in the abstract way because it's necessary to fill out all of the different variations. In the exaltation, the maximization of the potential of form, the father or the parent whose success will benefit the children. The fuel for recognition through feelings. It is very important to understand that the children of Homo sapiens, if you look at this from the mystical side, that they will be something else. This transition out of the experiential way, its completion, will lead to the transcendence that not those who do transcend will experience. They will go through a period of discomfort, but what will follow will benefit from all of that. And that's the mundane application as well, like with all lines. The 41-6, when it can make that fueling commitment to an energy, it can ultimately benefit others through that and be of value. And that is also part of its contagion. They can lead all kinds of human beings into an experiential trend. These people can be trend setters. But ultimately, the major trend, the ultimate trend, the mystical trend, is when we have a lack of experience, when the need for experience or the desire, the hunger for experience is left behind. That's when the process is complete, and we're not there yet. In the detriment, the tendency in transcendence to keep it a secret in fear of being deprived of its special advantages, the fuel for secret or repressed feelings. In the early part of their life, they keep on banging into others, of course, and they discovered it wasn't a very good thing for them necessarily to reveal what it was they were pressuring for, what their fantasy is. And because they don't find forces that are correct for them at the other end, and they end up withdrawing, then they hold those things within them and do them anyway. But it's simply about getting to the point then where the pressure is being held back. And this is what we're going to experience in the coming years. The way in which evolution works is that we will have pockets all over the planet of different kinds of creatures like us that will have different capacities and capabilities than we do. Not in any science fiction sense of the word, not really, but simply in that they will begin to experience each other from the moment of birth in a consciousness field that they will not be able to describe. And in most cases, they will never share with other people because it will seem rather bizarre. They will be the ones that are different in the way in which experience is initiated because they will stop it. We will have a generation of children who are born with the human experiential way. That's the 41, the 30, the 36, and the 35. And they would not appear to us to be particularly abstract at all. They themselves will have a feeling of almost being stuck. They will be the sort of the root of cults in this century that we're in. They will say that not only is all of this coming to an end, but we're already dying from it. There's no place for us to go. Humanity is finished. We're going to die out. Now, and they will have a lot of confirmation of that as it's all around us all the time. There are a lot of things that will support that point of view. We are having a vast decrease in population already. When you hear the phrase repressed feelings, just be a little bit careful with that, because ultimately that is what is going to take place. But the first thing that will happen is that these feelings, they will be repressed. The need for the experience, the need for fantasy will be repressed, but not repressed in an unhealthy sense in the way that we use this language now, but simply because that's going to be the genetic capacity to start holding back this need for more experience. We are moving towards a time in which we need to be vastly organized in the most intimate way. The organization will come out of the logical field with its repetition and its experimentation. It won't come out of the abstract field. What will happen here is that the whole abstract field will begin to be repressed. And you could meet 41-6 and you can ask them, do you fantasize a lot? And they will say no. Are you full of feelings? No. The mechanism is already at work, and it goes along with the sixth line quality of, why should I? This is already here in our experience. Evolution on the human scale is a very slow process. This emotional spirit consciousness has already been with us for thousands of years, and yet we haven't had the tools to be able to look at it until fairly recently. The children who were born in 1997 with Uranus in gate 41, particularly those who were born with Uranus in the 41-6, which would have been in the July and then December of 1997, because there was some retrograde shenanigans going on, they are the ones who will begin the pullback of this experiential way. They're the first generation of abstract children who are not seen to function that way. Many of these children who are now in their late 20s are not children anymore, but they may be considered clinically repressed. Many of them may have suffered deeply because they were constantly pushed into having experiences by parents who didn't know any better, of course. There's no judgment here. This is the program playing out. Uranus is initiating this new experience, especially in the sixth line. Uranus will bring that out in them so that there is already this genetic field that is beginning to operate. And the children who were born with that 41-6 carry this energy with them and keep the aura of this energy alive in the world. They're setting the foundation for this transition. Ra said that for us, nothing that is described here might be experienced as particularly pleasant. For us, we're part of the aura of the fifth line, where we have given our authority to experience. Without experience, we do not know. This is why we have that kind of virtual reality that is so popular. Nobody gets the experience. We already have vast moments at work to take us out of needing to physically have an experience ourselves, and yet we come into the world at a time when experience still has our authority, and we will have that experience. We will be giving our authority there still for hundreds of years yet. But there will be a great reaction to that. And it's why we've moved into this thing of like, we can't have the experiences we want to have or the fantasies we want to have, but virtual reality can take us there. The whole experiential nature of being human is coming to an end. We are at the flourishing of that. We are getting so many experiences. We are collecting so much data. And now we go down the other side. Everything is being reduced. You cannot have exponential growth. We start to pull things back. We are not driven into new experience anymore, but we are quite locked into old experiences. So one of which is just trying to stay alive, trying to survive and flourish on this plane. We will not look for something new, but we will go back to the basics. Ra said the deepest event in our time will be the fertility capacity in humans becoming much less. I think he used the word devastated, which is a very Ra way of describing things. But fertility, certainly, the levels of fertility are decreasing. Population is decreasing. We will have to go back to basic things. We will have to be very well organized in order to keep our species alive. We will not be able to tolerate all kinds of drives for different experiences when the species itself is threatened. And this may sound like science fiction or like a massive hyperbole. Can you have a massive hyperbole, or is it just hyperbole? Anyway, that, because we still don't actually know what's going to happen in 2027 or what the result of that will be or what the rave will be like and how our lives as humans are going to unfold, sharing a planet with a completely different species, where we get pushed into just survival because nature isn't going to support us anymore. We don't know what that's going to be like, but we can see from the cycles that we're moving into, the global cycles that we're moving into, the potential that is there for it to be quite tricky. Knowing who we are is certainly something that can take us into these situations in a different way with some authenticity. And that is something that's going to be very important because it will be not necessarily what the experience is, but how we meet it that is going to make the difference. The abstract process is cyclical. It's important to remember that. So it'll actually only be held back, this repression, for some time, not for, it could only be held back for so long. Because it's cyclical, ultimately that pressure will have to be released. And when it's clear enough to know what pressure is necessary to fulfill the particular hunger, the next step that we go to from here, from the 41, is into gate 19. We go into the tribe. We're still in the root center. We're pointing towards the emotional center still. And we've gone from desire in the 41 and we'll be going into need. 19, the gate of neediness. In other words, is this desire something that we truly need? And also, what do we need in order to fulfill our desires? We could do it both ways. It's a very, very different thing, though. It is the conditioning on the quality of desire, which might not be very effective in our life. Keep in mind that, again, there's no awareness in it. That in the 19, there is a recognition that the relationship to the emotional system must be based on need, and that there is a need for resources. That's what the need is in gate 19, because it wants the tribe to be looked after. So the tribe must have access to the resources that are very basic for survival. And gate 19 is a critical point in that. 41 is hungry, but the 19 is interested in having a pasture full of sheep. So the question of hunger sort of disappears. The grounding comes from the 31-6, which is called application. The sixth line doesn't really apply itself unless there's a good reason for it to do so, unless there is some benefit, some value to be discovered, and then it will engage. All six lines are aloof in their nature, looking to the whole circuit, keeping an eye on things. The application of the role model will come through when the timing is correct. Everything comes back to timing, after all. Venus is snuggling up with Neptune in gate 36, transiting in at 5:24. And it's interesting with these gates with Neptune in them, because are we actually going to feel the influence of Venus? Because Neptune, as we know, makes things fuzzy and it veils things. So we can talk about, well, what gate 36 is about, but are we even experiencing it right now? Will we know what kind of crisis we've been in until gate 36 is clear of the influence of Neptune? But it is the gate of crisis. It is the darkening of the light, or not. It's in the solar plexus. It's part of the human experiential way that we've been exploring through this sun's transit in gate 41. It's the gate that hungers after a new experience, and yet it is vulnerable. We talked about this before. I told you about the vulnerability that is in gate 36. It's a collective, of course, and experiences are meant to be shared. And it's also the manifestor energy. So the moon has been in gate 11 since 2358, the abstract collective gate of peace and ideas. It moves into gate 10 at 10:28, the gate of the behavior of the self, which is also called treading. This is a gate in the G center, and it's the only gate of behavior that we have in the body graph. It's a roll gate. It gives us the major keynotes for our profiles. Each line in gate 10 it's either the it's actually called modesty, the first line. It's not the investigator, but it's the investigator, the hermit, and the martyr, the opportunist, the heretic, and the role model. These are the lines of gate 10. Circuit-wise, it's part of integration and centering, which tells us that our correct behavior will ensure our own survival as we go forward. And whilst it may be empowering, it is also primarily self-empowering. And then the moon moves into gate 58 at 2050. This is the logical root gate of the collective. It's the gate of vitality, the joyous. It is the fuel to correct and to do so joyfully. And it is the mirror to gate 41. They're in the same positions, moving out of the root center. So they both carry a pressure and they both carry a fuel, and yeah, okay. And then gate 38 is our last moon gate today, and that's at 07:05 tomorrow morning, another root center gate, the gate of the fighter. So back to individuality here with the 38. Fighting is something that makes you feel alive. You know, you take on a battle that is for you. It's a personal matter. The 38 doesn't want to be influenced or interfered with as it finds out what its fight is going to be, what it has the fuel or the energy to fight for. Okay, so that's us. That's gate 41 done. We move into gate 19 tomorrow, and I look forward to seeing you then. And thank you. I hope you've enjoyed this exploration into 41. It is a fascinating gate that starts us off into our new cycle. And any reflections you have, please do feel free to share them. We're in that collective energy. I would very much love to read what your experience of gate 41 has been. If you have it in your design, do you resonate with the lines that you have, or has it highlighted anything for you hadn't considered before? Or perhaps you don't have it in your design, but you've been aware more of a pressure to feel, or a pressure to fantasize, or maybe your dreams have been a little bit more intense during this 6-day period. Whatever it is, it's unique to you, but I would still love to read it and hear about it. Thank you for joining me. Take care of your gorgeous, lovely, unique self, and go gently.